You're listening to the first and longest running female-hosted hunting podcast. Welcome to the HuntFishTravel podcast, helping you navigate your trip of a lifetime. And now, here's your hostess, Carrie Zylka.
Welcome to the HuntFishTravel podcast. I'm your hostess, Carrie Zylka. This week, we're talking to Lee Schneider of Boot-Trac Adventures. And we're talking about sturgeon spearing in Wisconsin. Wisconsin is really the only place you can sturgeon spear. So, it's an interesting conversation, something very unique to Wisconsin that I am privileged to take part in every year. The show notes for this episode can be found on the website huntfishtravel.net under the show tab. You can also find the HuntFishTravel podcast on the Outdoor Podcast channel, a brand new show every single day, all on one single RSS feed. This episode is brought to you by the Fond du Lac Area Visitors Bureau. Trust me when I say it is my second home. You have Lake Winnebago, you have tons of public hunting land. It's really a great place to visit. So if you're looking for somewhere to go fishing or hunting, I highly recommend the Fond du Lac area in Wisconsin. So where have I been? Oh my gosh. So a few weekends ago, I had the distinct pleasure of attending an archery shoot on World Dragon Shooting Day. It was super fun. Everyone had an absolute blast. I got to meet Dorothy and Wyatt from episode 128. And I was introduced to the Cynical Saints, a group of gearheads dedicated to volunteering their time at charity events. Seriously, a great group of people. Anyone who's ever tried to put on an event knows how difficult it is to get people to volunteer their time. You know, people will have no problem writing a check, getting them to donate 2 hours, whole other battle. And these guys, they provided 17 people to this event. They're really just a great group of people. I was really impressed with them. They took the time to sit down and tell me what their organization was about and some of the charity events that they've participated in. I was pretty blown away. World Dragon Shooting Day, they had 35 states participate and 45 countries around the world participate in the event. I am now officially best buds with Arlinda, the gal they were donating the money raised to. She has a very, very aggressive type of cancer, and the money raised was going to a foundation that helps cover lodging and expenses for cancer patients during their rehabilitation. And I cannot even explain to you how fun she was. She was using one of the Kenosha bowmen. They have like bows that you can use, borrow, whatever, like a bunch of stocked bows. She was doing a pretty damn good job, I gotta say, for having no rest, no sight, no peep sight, no anchor point, no nothing. She was doing a pretty damn good job, and she was having a blast doing it. And that's really what this was all about. It's just a charity event. Everybody has a good time, raise some money. Our particular event raised about $2,000. I don't know what the total was for the whole entire event, but it was really cool. It was a really cool thing to participate in, and I hope next year you will join me, because you don't even have to be in Wisconsin to participate. More details next year. You can find the World Dragon Shooting Day on Facebook. Just search for World Dragon Shooting Day, or you can follow them at Shoot Dragon. I posted a bunch of photos on my Facebook page, facebook.com/wildworldofcarrie, or I officially changed the name of my page to HuntFishTravel, so you can just search for that, and it'll come right up, and you can see some photos. So where I'm going to be, this year my turkey season is a little bit different. Usually my big out-of-state turkey hunt is with the Association of Great Lakes Outdoor Writers. But this year, their spring mega media cast and blast was in Wisconsin. And since I'm from Wisconsin, and they only allow 8 media members to participate, I figured I'd forego putting my name in the lottery, and hopefully somebody else will get to experience the joys of hunting in my favorite state. So instead, I'm heading to Illinois to hunt turkeys with Sharkey Outfitters mid-April. You'll remember him from episode 119 from the deer season, and I have yet to hunt turkeys in Illinois, so I'll be able to check this state off the list, which is awesome. You can always follow Rob on Twitter at SF28430. Good luck remembering that. Be sure to follow me on Twitter at Carrie Zylka, CarrieZylka. I'm going to do some live streaming on Periscope, and I'm sure I'll be posting a ton of updates while I'm turkey hunting in Illinois. It's going to be a good time. I am on the line with Lee Schneider of Boot-Trac Adventures, and we're going to chat a little bit about the 2016 Sturgeon Spearing season here in Wisconsin. Hey, Lee, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me.
Hey, why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about Boot-Trac Adventures?
Boot-Trac Adventures is a group of guys and gals up here. What we do is we take out women, kids, physically disabled, and handicapped people, veterans. We take them into the outdoors and get them reacquainted with it and stuff like that. And we film all these adventures, and then we put them on our TV show, which is aired on the Hunted TV channel.
Excellent. Well, very cool. So let's talk a little bit about sturgeon spearing. Now, for anyone who's been living under a rock and, anyone who hasn't followed me on social media or been listening to the podcast the last few weeks, Wisconsin had technically at the time of this recording, it's still in the process of its 16-day sturgeon spearing season. It's the only place in the United States that you can sturgeon spear, with the exception of a very small, I think it's like 6 tags in Michigan. But it's the only place that really, say, a non-resident can come and get a tag. So why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about your sturgeon spearing experience? How long have you been spearing?
This was my 43rd year spearing.
Wow. That's awesome. It's, and sturgeon spearing is kind of a little bit of like a family tradition. Did you grow up sturgeon spearing, or?
Yeah, well, my dad was a big, ice fisherman because he was always laid off in the winter. So he lived on the lake. He did a lot of, pickup fishing, but he loved the sturgeon spearing. And I learned most of what I know about that from him. And then, of course, after that, it's, you just kind of learn on your own, just like anything else. But, he got me into it, and I was hooked. I've been going since I've probably been like 5 or 6, going out there, but I couldn't spear legal until I was 14.
Sure. That's awesome. How many sturgeon have you gotten?
I don't have an exact total, but I know it's right in the area of 17.
That's wonderful.
Like that. Yeah. I did better when the seasons were longer, back in the day before they changed regulations, made them half-day spearing and, then put the caps on and stuff. But, it's 17 and can't sneeze out there. There's a lot of guys that don't have near that many, so I'm happy.
Yeah, because sturgeon spearing is kind of like muskie fishing. It's like the fish of, muskies are like the fish of 10,000 casts, whereas sturgeon spearing is like the fish of 40,000 sits, Yep. Yeah, well, that's why they refer to it as duck hunting for a chimney, so. Yeah, exactly. So a record 13,674 licenses were sold for the 2016 sturgeon spearing season. That's crazy. That's a huge number compared to, say, 10 years ago.
Right. Yep. And then, you look at the years, there's some years where the harvest is way high. Now this year, you're only looking at, I think, when I seen these report earlier, it was only like 600 fish or something like that so far for the year. So your odds of getting one, depending upon the water clarity on the year and stuff, I guess it's only, I think, comes up to like 10% of the people actually spear a fish.
Yeah.
At times.
Yeah, it's really low. It is what it is,
Well, it's part of the sport. That's the thing. And the thing is, everything happens so fast. It's not, you're sitting there and 3 seconds later, it's all over.
Yeah.
You can only see so much area, and they just glide in and it's over.
Yeah. So far, 666 fish have been taken as of today, which is pretty low considering the harvest cap, I'm just looking here, is 2,175.
Yeah. And again, the weather plays a big part of that. And that's kind of what weather and water clarity are the two big things. And this year we had a kind of a double whammy. You couldn't see the bottom in the majority of the places. And the other thing is, we had that big thaw last week. And I know when we went out to get our shanties, there was hardly any snow left, and there was probably 6 to 12 inches of water on top of the ice.
Yeah. I know.
So, and that's when everybody pulls them off, and you have to be safe. You have to do that.
Yeah, exactly. And opening weekend. So opening weekend, it was I don't know. Did you think that the water was real murky? Some people were saying that it was. I thought it was really, really murky.
Well, and this goes back, like I said, I've been 343 years. So back in the day when we could see 11 feet, we were doing cartwheels, it's like, hey, we're doing pretty good. If you go by the last, few years here, 10, 15 years, the water was murky this year because everybody's used to seeing the bottom because the water clarity in Winnebago, quality in Winnebago has gotten so much better.
Oh, yeah.
So it was murky, and that's the problem. You can only see so far down, so you could have fish going underneath you if you would be dumped.
Yeah.
And the weather conditions really weren't prominent for the fish to really be moving a whole bunch either opening weekend, just because of the cold temperatures and the high pressures. So it wasn't the best opening weekends, especially sawing in on Fridays.
Yeah, I know. It's been a really weird winter period. So that figures. I mean, it was a week before that we were thinking that nobody was going to be able to sturgeon spear at all because of the warm temperatures.
Right. You know, in the last, you know, again, going back, you know, years ago, I mean, we had almost 30 inches of ice, and now we're happy to see, you know, 18 to 20.
Yeah.
And you know, like you said, you know, 5 weeks ago, there was still open water out on Lake Winnebago. And that's, you know, going back, you know, like I said, when I was a kid, we were ice fishing by the 1st of December a lot of times. So
yeah,
things have changed a little bit, you know.
Oh yeah, I didn't get out this year until mid-January. Kind of sucked.
Yeah, everybody was chomping at the bit this year to get out there, that's for sure.
I know, we're all like, so glad we have all this expensive, you know, equipment sitting in the garage.
Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly.
Well, so far this year, the largest sturgeon taken was 148 pounds, 77-inch females. That's a big fish, man. That's a big freaking fish.
Yeah, it is. I can't say that I've ever seen anything near that come in. I think the biggest one that I've speared was 66 pounds.
Yeah.
You know, and I've never had the privilege of seeing a big one come in, but I'm sure it would be an eye opener. That's for sure.
Oh my God, I can't even imagine either. So let's walk the listeners a little bit through the whole process, like from cutting it. Well, okay, let's back up to scouting. How do you scout for sturgeon? Like, that's probably the biggest question that I get, and I don't know the answer because I don't scout for sturgeon. But the biggest question that I get is, how do you scout for them pre-season and through the ice? Do you have any answers for that?
Well, you know, there's a number of different ways to do that, and you know, we've gone around and it's what they call, you know, you bounce the bottom, and what you do is you bring up sections of the bottom, you use a tube with a lid, and you scoop up some of the mud from the bottom, and you look for worms, basically. It's basically the lake fly larva is a little worm at that stage, and that's what the fish will eat on. So you're looking for food sources, basically. And they just had a report out today, I was reading it earlier, that, you know, they did stomach samples, and the three big things that they found in there were, on the main lake, was the worms, the gizzard shad, and then the zebra mussels. Those are the three big things they were eating. So some guys will go and like I say, you know, they'll take some of the dirt from the bottom and look to see if there's worms in there, which would be considered a worm bed. Or they'll look for dead shad on the bottom, or they'll look for, you know, zebra mussels to be on the bottom. And they're that way, they'll, to find the shad and the zebra mussels, they use the underwater cameras. And they'll just kind of look around, you know, and do that. Other than that, you know, it's a game of, you know, they got to be in the area. But, you know, anytime you can find a food source, it ups your odds. But you got to spend time going around looking for them, you know.
Yeah, right. Like, you're drilling hole after hole after hole. Right.
And I know guys that, you know, they'll go out there and they'll start 2 to 3 weeks ahead of time if they have that, you know, option, and they'll go out and they'll work from the north end to the south end and all, you know, east to west, and they'll drill hundreds of holes looking for these different spots. You know, and then the other thing is you find these spots, you look for the best water, you know, clarity again. You know, so that's key. And then, you know, like I say, if the traveling conditions too to get to them is a big thing too, you know, so. That's, you know, and then the guys, when they can actually legally saw, some of them will start drilling holes and they'll put decoys down and start watching a couple of weeks ahead of time just to see if any fish will come to the decoys, you know.
Interesting. You know, let's talk a little bit about the roads. That's another thing that people are always like, what are you talking about? Roads on the ice, on the lakes. How does that work? So you have fisheries, right, that kind of maintain the roads for fishermen?
Yeah, there's different clubs around the lake, and they'll put out what they call a tree line. And the tree line go out, they put a tree, it's a Christmas tree, and they'll put it out like every 10th of a mile. And they'll go out, you know, whatever, you know, some of them go out 5 miles and they meet up with, you know, groups from the other side or whatever. And those trees are what they call the road. That is just a marker so that in case it starts blowing, snowing, you know, getting foggy, whatever, that you can hit those trees, and those trees are tilted or lean towards shore. So when you hit these trees, you see the tree, okay, this is the road, this will take me back to the landing. But when you look at the tree, you can see which way it's tilted, and you'll know that's the direction you need to go to get to shore.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and then they're maintained by the clubs have plow trucks, and they will go out, and they're the ones that really, maintain the bridges going over cracks. They'll keep the roads plowed. If water starts coming up, they'll plow a different road. So, and all these are run basically through donation from the sportsmen that use it,
Interesting. I didn't know that about the way they lean the trees. I guess I've noticed that. I never realized why.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't know that, and it's actually a pretty important thing to know, especially when you get out there when a storm comes up. And they're not. It's not like they're not leaning, drastically leaning like at a 45-degree angle, but they are tipped and pitched towards the shoreline so that you know which way to go in case you get disoriented.
That is fascinating. Huh. And okay, so that's pretty cool.
I think, and again, you're looking at, how many years of people doing this, and when things happen, that's how we come up with these ideas. But,
Sure. That totally makes sense. That last day that we were out there, I was out there with Carrie Stallenwork from the Fond du Lac Area Visitors Bureau, and we were pretty far out, and we were trying to figure out how to get back to shore. And actually, we were in an area that didn't have a road, but eventually we found one. And it was I don't know, it was really super windy, so it was hard to see. So I can imagine that, in a whiteout condition, that would come in very, very handy. Yeah,
and again, like most of us have our GPSs, and we track our own roads.
Yeah.
So that in the event you ended, like last year, opening day was a whiteout.
Yeah.
And if it wouldn't have been for the GPS, I let a group of guys back in because they couldn't see anything. You couldn't see 100 feet.
Yeah.
And I basically took the lead with the GPS, and we all came in, so those are a lifesaver too. But for those that don't have one, if you know where the trees are from where you're fishing, and even if you have a compass, if you can go over and hit that tree line, you'll get back to shore.
Yeah, that's cool. That's a handy tip to know.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the day before the season even opens. That's generally, how early can you cut in a shanty?
It's 2 days for 48 hours prior.
Okay.
So you have the Thursday and the Friday, you can saw holes, and you can actually sit in the shanties if you want to. You just can't have spears in them until 7 o'clock on the opening day. So, the day before, basically, we usually have our shanties staged, and we will, we just mark our holes, and you've seen the ice saws, but I don't know if anybody out there, doesn't know what they are. They're basically wood chainsaws, but they have a longer bar, like mine has a 42-inch bar, and it has a specially sharpened chain just for ice.
Interesting.
And you cut your hole, but you always angle it, so that you can push the chunk down, and the chunks and there's, different ways, and I'm sure you've seen that just being out there the years that you've been out there. Some of them push one end down and just push the chunk under. And then you saw how we did it when we actually sunk the chunk, we actually flip our chunk and then give it a shove and push it out. So there's different ways of doing everything.
That seemed like a very, very smart way to do it, because it seemed like the least amount of effort with the maximum amount of results compared to many other ways that I've seen people do it.
Yeah, some of them are quite, sophisticated, I'm going to use the word.
Yeah. So what is the diameter of the hole that you can cut with the chainsaw?
The largest hole, unless they change it, the largest hole you can have is 48 square feet. Majority of the holes that you see in shanties will be like a 3-foot by 5-foot hole, or, something close to that. But there are some shanties that do have bigger ones in there. I've seen 3 by 11 and stuff like that. And then you can have multiple people sitting in there to spear too.
Sure.
Basically 3 foot by 16 foot long. Well, years ago, before they even had that limitation, there were people that used to set up like tents, and they'd cut big hole. I mean,
Yeah.
really big holes in there. And then they did, like I said, they had multiple people spearing. But yeah, that's a pretty big hole. Like I say, most people aren't going to have it. I think the average hole is, probably a 3x5 or 3x6, something like that.
But you know what? Let's talk a little bit about like shanties, because when you go out there, you see the traditional dark house, and that is a hard-sided ice shanty, blackened on the inside, so that, as any hunter knows, so that your prey cannot silhouette you.
Right.
But I've seen what is the most interesting type of shanty that you've seen? I saw a teepee out there 2 weekends ago, and I thought that was pretty cool.
Well, yeah, many years ago, I can remember, guys, and it was a year where the ice was, that's when we had the 30-day season, and it was getting on to late ice, and the ice was just about ready to go out. And I know guys that took, like, the big freezer boxes, like you get your big freezers in from the appliance stores.
Yeah.
And they were taking them and covering themselves with that and spearing under those.
That's crazy.
Because they were lightweight and they could walk out with them.
Heck yeah.
Yep. And it's, that's probably the craziest thing I've seen. But, you can spear, like you say, as long as it's dark on the inside. I mean, now there's a lot of these little pop-up fish shanty type things, or fishing hut things. You could technically set those up and then do the spearing out of them. Wouldn't be as comfortable as you shack, but you could do it.
Well, that's what I was kind of thinking. Like, I have my beautiful clam, and all I'd have to do is, like, put, like, a black tarp on the inside, blacken it out on the inside, and it would be fine, and have my little heater, and I'd probably be good to go for a day and save myself $150 rental.
Yeah. Yeah, you could do that.
Just saying.
There's ways around everything, right?
Yeah. That's funny.
Yeah,
no,
we actually, this year I actually put a camera because I wanted to actually see what that looked like. We put a camera down and we took it off to the side and we brought it in. So we did it from the bottom up and to see what the fish could see, what they were looking up at.
Yeah.
And when it's dark in there, you can't see anything. But if you let any little bit of light in there, they'll see you in there. Yep.
That's crazy. That's fascinating. Absolutely fascinating to me. And you would think that, like, light coming through the ice would almost be brighter just because of the reflection. I don't know. Maybe not. I guess I'm not a fish.
Well, it is. It is. When you look at the camera, you can see where your shanty sits.
Yeah.
It's dark and everything around it is bright. It's very bright.
That's so
and it's
cool.
the same thing that you kind of see too when, like, they always say, years ago they always said, if you fall into a sturgeon hole and you were to go under the ice, you always look for the dark spot.
Yeah.
And that's true. That's what you're looking for.
Sure. Interesting. Very interesting. So what would be the top tip that you would give a spear that's never speared before?
Well, I would say, first of all, if you're going to come up here and you want to do this, I would talk to some local people, get to know some people up here, and because you want to know the area and you want to know what you're getting into. But as far as, the biggest thing you got to have when you're doing this here thing is you got to have a lot of patience. It's, people have described, they say, well, how do you practice for sturgeon spearing? And one guy, commented, he says, well, lock yourself in a closet with a TV that's got a snowy picture and sit in there and watch it for 6 hours.
Right. That's funny. Yep. No, you're absolutely right. Because my biggest tip for a brand new, my biggest tip for anybody sturgeon spearing, put your freaking smartphone in your vehicle. Don't bring it into your dark house because you're going to be checking on it because you're going to get bored and you're going to get fidgety and you're going to all of a sudden spend more time on your phone and you're going to miss.
That's very true. And even last year, when I speared my fish last year, if I had been, say, texting or something like that, there's a good chance that I might have missed that fish.
Yeah.
I was talking on the phone with actually one of the guys that fishes in our group, and I was talking to him, and I seen the nose come in, but this fish never decoyed. He was just swimming in through. And it was basically 3 seconds.
Yeah,
is what it was. And I was talking, I just tossed my phone back by the stove and grabbed the spear and speared it. But like you say, if you're looking at your phone and you're screwing around doing that, chances are a fish could swim through and you would never know it.
Absolutely. Yep. That's works right into the whole patience tip. Get rid of your smartphone, man. Don't give yourself an excuse to be distracted. Because you're right. It is boring. It's way more boring than sitting in a tree stand.
That's for sure.
Because there is like nothing moving. It's amazing how excited people get when they're like, oh my God, a perch! Look at what. Because there's nothing.
Yep. Yeah, because anything that moves in there, it's like, oh my God, there is life.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my God, gizzard shad. I've never been so excited over damn minnows in my life. Well, awesome. Well, thank you so very much for taking a few minutes out of your day to chat with us about some sturgeon spearing. I'm assuming that you'll have an episode coming up on your TV show?
Matter of fact, as soon as I get done with what I'm doing right now, the next one out will be a sturgeon spearing one, and it might even be multiple shows because I've got like 2 years of footage that we've gotten. There's a lot of DNR information in there and stuff like that, so it might be a multiple show thing. Thanks for how fast I can get it thrown together. Yep, there's going to be something coming up real soon.
Excellent. And what date and time does your show air?
It's a 24/7. All you got to do is you go on to the hunted.tv, and then you'll just look for our show, Boot-Trac Adventures, and then they'll list all our shows. So you can watch it anytime, any day.
That's perfect.
24/7.
Perfect. And that'll do it. Thanks so much for listening. If you'd like to support the Hunt Fish Travel podcast, head on over to patreon.com/Carrie Zylka, CarrieZylka, where you can chip in $1 or $2. Podcasting isn't free, and your support helps keep the lights on. Don't forget to find the show on iTunes. Just search for Hunt Fish Travel, all one word. Hit the subscribe button. You can also follow me on social media. Just go to huntfishtravel.net and click on the social media icon of your choice. Thank you for listening.